welcome to No Brainer MMA. Welcome back from our month hiatus. Um, yeah, just been super busy, and yeah, we're back. We'll be back up every week now, which is cool. And yeah, I'm gonna start posting like my picks from last week in the beginning. Like any bets, I'll do it now, and then yeah, just back to business, right into these fights. Ramona Pasquale versus Tamirez Vidal. Now, talk about an underwhelming fight to start this card. And I think this could go down as one of the worst cards. I mean, one of the worst fights like of the year. I'm telling you, this is going to be like really, really tough to watch. The fact that this fight is even taking place goes to show you just how down and out the female bantamweight division is just like really, really bad. Ramona Pasquale, 0-2 so far in the UFC. The best part of the game that I've noticed so far is that she can just take a fucking beating. Two very one-sided unanimous decision losses. She has over the first two fights, she's got a -5, excuse me, striking differential. Um, yeah, she just takes a ton of damage. So stagnant on the feet. And she'll land like a desperation takedown or two. I won't like totally dog her. Not, she's got that on her side. And it's crazy to actually say this, but I think she has a solid shot in this fight. She's taking on Tamirez Vidal, who's making her UFC debut. I watched her fight against fellow UFC roster woman Eileen Perez. She just made her debut recently. I think she lost. It wasn't that great, but from a fight from 2021 where Vidal won by disqualification. Basically, she like went to clinch right away. Just grappling mostly, nothing too crazy. More like holding her up against the fence, not really like landing any takedowns. Um, her stand up just did not look up to par, and it really showed from the get go. She did run. She got taken. She ended up getting taken down and then reversed a couple of times. I mean, I think she might have landed a takedown, but was reversed, and then like she got taken down a couple of times. Gas tank didn't look good. She ran subs, which actually was probably the best thing I took from that. She has like a pretty good sub game, but she didn't really get her anything, and she just took a beating for 3 rounds, and then Perez just landed a couple of brutal knees to her head, like while she was down on one knee, which is just like a total bonehead move. She was about to win that fight. Um, so Vidal actually won after getting her ass kicked, and then I don't know. She's only has a 6-1 pro record. Pasquale's yeah, so like Pasquale has a 6-4, but I'm just saying, like at least she's faced a couple of losses and stuff. Pasquale is so desperate for a win here. She has the UFC experience, which people don't say matters. I do. I think it matters, and that's that. Uh, yeah, and I just looked like Vidal looked. She just looked like shit. I can't really. I just can't bet on her. I don't think anyone should bet on this, but if you do, bet on Pasquale. I think she's got a little bit more stuff going for her. But oh my god, people are gonna be talking about this, like how much of a piece of shit fight this was. All right, so don't bet on this. I'm going Pasquale, but maybe take a watch a half an hour later. Gonna move right into the next one. Jake Hadley, Carlos Candelario. Candelario made his UFC debut in his last time out to a really high prospect, Tatsuro Tara. Total 22 years old and like a huge prospect right now. And he just got absolutely dominated. He did show his toughness. He got beat up, still held on, but it was really, really one sided. He's a 2-time contender series alum and definitely beat his opponent the first 2 rounds um, before slowing down in the third. Then that was to let's see, who was that to? Ronaldo Candido. I don't know, relatively unknown, really no one. But yeah, he won. He won. It wasn't a finish. It was just like 2 rounds to one, 29-28 type deal. Um, then he fought Victor Altramano, who I think is a stud. And that fight was a total banger. Both guys just like landed takedowns, forward pressure the whole time, just strikes. And he showed a new layer to his game. The first game was all striking. And then this, he actually landed 5 takedowns and had 5 minutes of control time. Did end up losing, but yeah, it was a good fight. It was fun to watch. Nothing really stands out to me about his game. He's well rounded, which is good. He's taken on Jake Hadley, who I think is overrated. I know there's a lot of prospects coming out of the UK right now and stuff like that, but I think this is one of the lower ones. Um, People like him. I don't know. I don't really see it. He's a minus 275 favorite in this, so obviously people are the bookmaker, whatever. People are thinking he's going to win, but I have not been impressed at all. He had a very close contender series fight where he was a minus 300. Did get the win, but he lost the first round for sure. He ended up getting a sub in the second. But yeah, I wasn't really impressed by the amount of hype he had. And then he had a super underwhelming performance at his UFC debut in his last time out. Landed 8 significant strikes, 0 takedowns. He just did not look good. It was against Alan Nascimento, who, he had his ups and downs. Really, he got fed to the wolves just like everyone at the 125-pound division because there's not enough dudes. So like new guys just come in and they start fighting just these tough guys. But yeah, he just did not look good. That fight was super underwhelming. There was a total of 27 total significant strikes in a 15-minute 3-round fight, which is just totally embarrassing. Um, I think Candelario is a solid bet here. Pretty sizable underdog at the moment. I mean, Jake Hadley so far he's been a minus 300, a minus 200. Now he's a minus 275. So, and he already lost that minus 200 fight. So I think it's totally possible. It's a solid bet early on. Um, it's not that I think Carlos Candelario is gonna totally dominate. I just think it's a lot closer than that. So, it might be a good thing to put it on a parlay or two. But I'm not gonna go with my second underdog already. I'm gonna go with Carlos Candelario. And we're gonna move right into the next one, which is, oh my god, my nose is fucking itchy. I'm just getting over being sick. So cheers. Johnny Munoz Jr. versus Ludwig Shalonian. I don't want to come across as like too much of an asshole here, but Ludwig Shalonian, I think he might be one of those frauds. Um, there was that other guy that came out of the Ukraine this year who just, I forget his name. He just got his ass beat. It turned out he said he had like a 26-4 record, and then by the time like the fight happened, it was back to like a 16-12 record. He just lied about the whole thing. And Shalonian, I looked at his record, and it is kind of bloated. 6 of his 9 wins are coming from fighters who are making their pro MMA debut. We're 0-0 records. We're talking. He was on season 29 of Tough. Actually got his first fight. He won his first fight. Just grapples, shot for takedowns. Really wasn't too fun to watch. Really relied on the grappling, showing that he doesn't really have striking. He's kind of one-sided. And they got absolutely demolished by Jack Shore in his debut. Which, go ahead, you're fighting Jack Shore in your debut. That's a tough fight. Of course it is. But he just did not show up whatsoever. Score recognized there was like an obvious striking mismatch, just pieced him up on the feet, made Shalonian look like he just didn't belong at all. And he's taken on Johnny Munoz Jr., who I think is a lot better than what we've seen from him. He also made his debut against a tough guy, Nate Maness, and Munoz did control him for almost 10 minutes. And in the third round, he ended up he ended up like he kicked Manus in the dick 3 times, 2 times before. He did it again in the third round. And finally, they just had to take a point away from him. That's just like too crazy. You can't kick a guy in the dick 3 times. But that fight was tough, very tough to call. 5 out of 15 media members had it for Johnny. 6 had it for Manus, and 4 had it a draw. So it was a very close fight. And Nate Manus, I think, is very good. So it was good to see that. I could like he probably could have been a little more crisp with his knees and kicks, but whatever. And then he had a great sub before getting knocked out by Tony Gravely in his last time out. He just ran into his fist, basically. Shot for a takedown and then just uppercut from Gravely really early on in the first round. But I think it's actually a good bounce back matchup for Munoz. And what's really selling it is the little confidence I have in Shalonian, whatever his name is. I just, yeah, I think it's a good matchup for him. I don't think Shalonian is that good. So I don't know. I don't see it. So yeah, my first favorite of the night, going with Johnny Munoz. All right, gonna move right into the next one. Mario Bautista versus Benito Lopez. Mario Bautista thrown to the wolves in his debut with a matchup against Corey Sandhagen, like a top 3 guy. Super tough. But not only was it his UFC debut, it was also his first pro loss. So I think you learned a lot from that. And I think, honestly, like looking back on it now, like I think even he would say it. I think it really helped him. He bounced back with a performance of the night and fight of the night, including a flying knee KO after that in his next 2 fights. And then he had another loss and 2 more wins. He's very well rounded. I think the striking is the best part of his game, even though he has more sub wins and is like a tremendous submission threat. But I think his striking is really, I don't know. He gets weird angles. He's actually got like pretty hard, like heavy hands. He's quick, athletic, as we've seen from that flying knee KO. Diverse set of strikes too. Attacks, doesn't just headhunt, or like we saw from Jared Vanderbilt last week. Like I think he landed like, I don't even know. I want to say 40 leg kicks, but had like maybe 18 strikes to the head. Like you're never gonna win a fight that way. No, they did some serious damage, but it very rarely are you going to get like a leg kick TKO. It just doesn't really happen too often. Yeah, so he attacks the head, body, legs. He's got a plus 1.3 striking differential, 2.2 takedowns per fight at 63% accuracy. Super well-rounded guy. He's taken on Benito Lopez, who's 3-1 in the UFC, but hasn't nearly been tested to the same level of competition like Bautista has. With the toughest, I would say probably Manny Bermudez. Didn't last long in the UFC, but still, like, I think that was probably his highest level competition. And he lost in the first round with a sub. Good striker. His problem is he takes a shot to land a shot, and it gets him into some pretty fun striking fights for the people watching, but it's not really conducive to winning. 3 out of his 4 UFC fights have been within 5 significant strikes, and 2 of them ended with the same exact significant strikes. So that's very hard to bet on. Bautista is just better wherever the fight goes, frankly. No offense, but yeah, more athletic, better striker, better grappler, always looking to finish the fight. Yeah, so I think this is really a really good matchup for Mario Bautista. So that's it. Gonna move right into the next one. Fear the Miranda Maverick versus Shanna Young. This fight, I can't believe the odds on this fight. It's just so crazy. I shouldn't even do this. I think Miranda Maverick she's one of the best up and coming fighters in the flyweight division. It's crazy. She's 1-2 in her last 3, but one of those was a really bullshit loss to Macy Barber, which Aspen Ladd is gone. Macy Barber, you're next. She fucking sucks. She's very well rounded, especially for someone only 25 years old. Very dominant, high paced grappling game, averages 2.1 takedowns per fight at 60% accuracy. But she's also a very high level Muay Thai practitioner, and which she doesn't get enough credit for. I think she's more known for that grappling, but she's so good on the feet too. I think she's getting an absolute stellar matchup here too against Shanna Young. who's 1-3 in the UFC, getting her first win in her last time out against Gina Mazzani, just UFC veteran. She's a striker with a black belt in karate, which I don't know. I feel like karate just doesn't translate. You know, it's kickboxing, boxing, for striking at least. It's Muay Thai. Everything else, I feel like just doesn't translate as good. Um, but even that being said, black belt in karate, she has not looked good on the feet. She has a minus 1.5 striking differential, only 60% takedown defense. Um, this guy, fuck. This fight was scheduled for back in August, but Young ended up getting hospitalized for a weight cut and pulled out of the fight. Maverick is the second biggest favorite on this card, around a minus 550, rightfully so. I think she's a shoe in. So um I'm gonna go with her. I'm gonna go with Miranda Maverick. All right, we're gonna move right into the next one. Derek Minner versus Shailen Yardambiek. Now, this one's tough. And some people might not see it as tough, but I think it's a tough one to call. Both guys are very similar. Both guys have very grappling heavy fight styles. Both guys have over 10 losses. Nurdembiak has 10, Minner has 13. 22 out of Minner's 26 wins have come by sub, and Nurdembiak has finished 27 of his 37 fights, but 17 of those have been by KO TKO, and the other 10 by sub. But a shitload of those KOs, TKOs on his record were TKOs. They weren't KOs, from ground and pound mostly. And actually, his last 4 KO wins have all been ground and pound TKOs that he sets up with his takedowns. He's a very dominant wrestler. Although he did land a knockdown in his last time out against TJ Brown, and does have power in his hands when he lands. He's inaccurate, swings from the hip, big looping punches, but when he lands, it's powerful. Both guys neither have the best stand up. I really don't hope this turns into a stand up fight. Both guys have very active takedowns. Minner averages 2.5 at 72% accuracy, and Nurdembiak averages 3 at 32% accuracy. Like I said, both guys super similar. It's very hard to pick, but overall, I think Nurdembiak just, he's a little younger. I think he's a little more dominant when it comes to the wrestling. So if Nurdembiak shoots for a takedown, I feel like he would land one on Minner, where if Minner shoots, I'm not sure if he would necessarily land it as much as Nurdembiak would. So I think he just kind of grinds out a win, uses his grappling. Minner does have a great sub game, like I said, so he might be in heaven just running subs, losing time, obviously, control time, but that might be his game plan, to just catch him with a sub. So if you want to do a Nurdembiak decision or a Derek Minner sub, I wouldn't be offended about either one. I think both are pretty good. Like I said, it's a tough one to call, but some people might think different. So actually, the next one, Jelton Almeida versus Maxim Grishin. Maxim Grishin just pulled out today. That fucking sucks. He was a minus. Almeida was a minus 720 favorite. So I don't know. Grisham might have saw the writing on the wall on that one and just was like, fuck it. All right, I'm gonna move. I think this is the main card now. Mark Madsen versus Grant Dawson. And this is actually very similar. Oh my god, this card is gonna fucking suck. This fight is very similar to the Minner versus Nurdembiak. Both guys are very good grapplers in that meeting, but it's a little better, a little more higher level. And I'm really sorry, Mark Madsen, but I don't think he fucking stands a chance in this. Yeah, he's a former Olympian. We get it. You're a very good wrestler. There's been other Olympians in the UFC too, dude. Not all of them win. Um, has an undefeated 12-0 record, but he transitioned very late to the MMA game. Made his pro debut at 36. He's 38 now. And like I got a lot of guys who transition late to MMA from a different discipline, usually one part of their game is much better than the other. They're one-sided. And that's exactly in this case. His striking's not good. He throws a lot of big looping punches. Um, very not technical at all. Just he really relies on that wrestling of his. And I think he should have lost his last time out against Vince Pichel. Vince Pichel, man, he got robbed. I'm sorry to say it. He got beat up for the first 2 rounds and then got laid on. Vince Pichel, I'm talking about, for the entire third and ended up losing. Judges are so stupid, though. They'll watch the third round like there's only one round in the fight, base it all off that. Not the first time it happened, not the last. Madsen's a bit of a leg humper. Sorry, dude. Sorry to tell it to you. Boring to watch. He's taking on a guy who's a decade younger than him. And in the UFC, when one fighter is 10 years younger than his opponent, the younger fighter wins about 68% of the time. And that stat is actually provided by the UFC themselves, too. So it's a real thing. I would love to know what 20 or 15 is. But 10 years, roughly right around there, 68, 69%. Grant is also I didn't even introduce Grant. This is Grant Dawson. He's also a wrestler, although he doesn't have the resume as Madsen. I'm meaning like the wrestling resume, not necessarily the MMA. I think Grant Dawson's faced and beat a lot tougher guys than Madsen's ever had. And he's a very good grappler. He's got a BJJ background and is the far better submission artist here. Not necessarily going to get the most takedowns in this fight, but he's the far better submission artist, finishing 16 out of his 18 wins, 12 of them by sub. Grant still has yet to lose in the UFC. He's got a 7-0-1 record and took his last fight on short notice. And he did struggle. His striking wasn't on the same level as Jared Gordon's, resulted in him in a very grappling heavy approach before he slowed down the third. Jared Gordon totally won the third. Yeah, I don't know. I just think Grant Dawson's definitely got the better striking. He's the better submission artist. I think he's the more high level fighter. He's faced better guys. I'm gonna have to go with Grant Dawson in that one. All right, gonna move right into the next one. Tygir Ulanbekov versus Nate Maness. What I don't know what that was frantic. What Nate Maness is doing here. Personally, I think he's a tough matchup for most. He's a great fighter. I'm a fan of his. Awesome sub game. He's got no quitting him. But I think he's got no business at flyweight. He started out I 145, 145. He had like a couple of like in between like 140, like 135. But he's like emaciated. The weight cut is going to be a massive and detrimental to his performance in this fight. He's not a small guy. He's skinny, but he's tall. I just think it's way too much. He's not a great striker. He's yet to outstrike one of his UFC opponents, and doesn't really ever open up his hands. No real really combos. Really, Tygir Ulanbek, I think honestly is a bit overrated. The guy has tremendous hype. I don't think he's really lived up to our expectations so far. He's had good performances. This one, take it with a grain of salt, whatever. But I like to mention it. Total red flag. He's pulled out of more fights in the UFC than he has, and that was all since 2021. So, whatever. How many fights does he have? He's got 3 fights. I think he's pulled out 4 times. So it's not necessarily the best look you want to see. And betting on him so far in the UFC has been more of like a headache than anything else because all three of his fights have been razor thin and give you a heart attack by the end of the fight. And he's gone to decision in all three fights. He's a good combat sambo practitioner, averages 3.7 takedowns per fight, 47% accuracy. But in the same breath, he's had trouble stopping takedowns. And he's a bit of a slow starter, which might be the reason for the close fights. Like he'll like take the first round, just kind of feel out his opponent and then open up a little. But it's kind of like there's only 3 rounds. That's really tough to do. Um, he did show off in his last time out. He's not just a one-trick pony. Um, he proved his striking. It's awkward and tough to figure out, but it really works in his favor. It's good. We didn't really get this. I guess we saw it with his first fight in the UFC against Bruno Silva. That fight was razor thin, as close as it gets. And then in his loss to Tim Elliott last time, he looked good on the feet. He lost the fight. A lot of it was from the grappling and just Tim Elliott just going a million miles an hour, like every second of the fight. So it's tough for, a younger guy coming in there facing a veteran like that. The grappling is pretty close here. I think Ulan is the far better striker, and that's going to be the difference maker in my head. So I'm going to go with Tiger Ulanbekov. All right, I'm going to move right into the next. Dude, this card it's got some fucking bad fights on it. Fuck. Seriously. The first one, Ramona Pasquale. That's dog shit. The Nurdembiak one, I'm not overly excited about either. I don't know. This one is Josh Parisian. I'm gonna get to it. Josh Parisian versus Chase Sherman. Sherman has not had it easy for him in the UFC. He's gone 3-7 in his last 10, including snapping a 4-fight losing streak in his last time out. And he was actually cut from the UFC and offered to take that fight on short notice, which ended up like resulting in him signing a new deal. That was against Jared Bandera, who's came up already tonight. Um, yeah, it showed he's always game to fight anyone anytime. Steps in on short notice a decent amount. Um, I don't know if it's because he's tough or he wants to get in Uncle Dana's good graces, but I'll leave that up to you. He's a great boxer. He fought bare knuckle a couple of times too. Very technical, landing over 100 strikes in 2 out of his last 4 fights. Parisian is 2-2 so far in the UFC with 2 first-round KOs on the Contender Series. Oh, and 2 first-round KOs on the Contender Series. Which that was the only time he's really looked good, I think, is on the Contender Series. Parisian is also he's a striker. He's won 11 out of his 15 wins by KO. He's not really too technical. He's just like super gritty. He makes it just really just gross and ugly when he gets out there. It's not going to be a pretty fight when Parisian fights. I did like how he overcame adversity in his last time out. He got dropped early on by Alan Boudreaux, and I thought it was done. It should have been done. If I honestly, that in my opinion, I think, but he was saved by the bell, and then he ended up just Alan Boudreaux just gassed the fuck out, and he got in there with a KO for himself. Parisian fights are usually like just disgusting. I mean, in the UFC, like not counting those first 2 KOs, and he was also on Tough too. He's just like they really like this guy. I don't see it. But I get on the Contender Series like 2 first-round brutal KOs. You're like, oh, this guy's gonna be sick, and then he just is real low level. Sorry, Josh, I don't want to say that. You can beat me up. This fight is pretty underwhelming, though, if I'm going to be honest. I don't really see a finish in this, honestly, which is even worse, especially for a heavyweight fight. They slow down so fast. I think these guys just slug it out. We see two very tired guys at the end in the third round, and I guess gun to my head, I'm gonna go Sherman, which is crazy. It's crazy to say, but yeah, I guess I'll go Chase Sherman. Oh, you got to be a serious addict to bet on that. I'll put some bucks on it. I'll put a couple bucks on it. All right, we're gonna be right into the co-main event: Neil Magny versus Daniel Rodriguez. Some people might not like this move for D Rod after only losing less than 2 months ago, but I do. I think it's a good move for him, honestly, because he had a split decision performance in his last time out with a literally like a 24-hour change in a fight where to me it looked like the Leech won. He fought the Leech at a 10-pound weight advantage, and I think he lost. But not to say that it wasn't close, but I think the damage from Leech overpowered, the slight more volume that D Rod had in the end. But whatever, it was close. I will say that. And that was like unprecedented. There's never been like a switch up like that ever in UFC history. 24-hour notice. That was with that whole Nate Diaz thing. It's never going to happen again. So, like, it was really a freak thing. So take it with a grain of salt. Do whatever you want. I just the reason why he's fighting so fat like quickly after that, it's been 2 months. I and he took a decent amount of damage. He just wants to get the narrative back on the side that he's like, he's still here. People kind of ran his name through the mud a little bit, as they do when someone wins in a controversial way. And he just wants to show up and let people know that he's still a threat. He's 8-1 in the UFC on a 4-fight winning streak. Very technical, high volume striking. Averages 7.8 strikes per minute, a plus 2.4 striking differential. Not the hardest hitter, but he's got great cardio. Fucking dogs, dude. He's taken on Neil Magny, and the craziest stat for this is that Magny is actually younger than D Rod. I could not believe that. Magny's had a 27 fight UFC career, stemming just under a decade, and because of that, he's taken a lot more damage. And to be a frequent finisher with 9 fights from 2015 to 2018 and a hiatus in 2019, he returned in 2020 with a much different approach, a veteran approach, maybe you can say a more high IQ fight IQ approach, but it was slower, less willing to look for a knockout or a finish or anything, but rather use his grappling, avoid damage. He's got an 80-inch reach for 170. He's fucking huge. 6'3" or whatever. And, take the fight into the later rounds and do his thing. Both guys have tremendous cardio. So I think we're going to see a great fight for all 3 rounds. And, since he took that year off, that hiatus, very small, but whatever, he's gone 5-2. And, I think he's looked really good. That being said, I think that he lost his last time out to Max Griffin, who fought last week. That wasn't even his last time out, excuse me. He fought Shavkat Rakhmonov and got subbed in the second very one-sidedly. But before that, he fought Max Griffin, and, it was a split decision, and I don't think Max Griffin is that high level of competition. So the fact that Dana White even said himself that Max Griffin won that fight, and I thought he won it too, but it's not a good sign. I just think that Father Time is catching up with them a bit, and I don't like that. And they're at the UFC Apex, we're at a smaller octagon, so he's not gonna be able to like get on his horse that much and like back up and like keep the distance, use the jab, use his 80-inch reach. Like I said before, I think he's slowed down a little bit. He's been around for a long time. But if I had to give some advice for this fight, I like the over. I think that's the safest bet in this one. It is a close fight. I think let me check the odds real quick. I think last time I checked, it was near Pick'em. And it's Magny's Magny's a favorite right now. -120. Interesting. Um, yeah, I like the over, but I'll go D-Rod, honestly. Just, no offense to Magny, but I like D-Rod in this. All right, we're gonna move right into the next one. Marina Rodriguez versus Amanda Lemos. I'm super excited about this one, and also pretty confident. I think I'm just a huge fan of Marina Rodriguez, if I'm being honest. But yeah, I'm gonna start this one with Amanda Lemos. She's 6-2 in the UFC and stands out from other strawweights due to her massive punching power for her weight. She really has like tremendous power in her hands. But if let's take a deep dive into her UFC record because it's a bit misleading. If I'm being honest, she's beat 4-1 Michelle Waterson, who, let's be honest, is way past her prime. She's getting up there. She's nearly 40. Lost to Jessica Andrade, who that's going to happen. I think Andrade is like top 2 competition, but it was dramatic fashion in the first round. Then before that, won a split decision to Angela Hill. But if you rewatch that, 2 and 3, rounds 2 and 3, you got to give to Hill. You got to be blind to not give it to Hill. And before that was Montserrat Conejo, not in the UFC anymore, but she was like 5-foot striker, grappler, excuse me, not really too high level. She joined the UFC when there was like no one fighting during COVID 2020, like early 2021. They signed her, and that was just to get people to fill in the roster. But yeah, she was not good. Massively undersized. She's like an atom weight. She had it pretty easy so far, Lemos, in the UFC. She wasn't tested, but Rodriguez is on a whole different level entirely. In her last time out, she beat a warrior in Yan Xiaonan, whose only losses are to Rodriguez and Carla Esparza, the current champ, but we'll see. We'll get back next week. We'll see if she loses. I think she will. Back-to-back one-sided wins that went to the championship rounds and really got a glimpse into Rodriguez's gas tank. And before that, starched Amanda Ribas with a first-round KO. Rodriguez has a +2 striking differential at 57% accuracy, compared to Lemos has a +0.4 at the same accuracy. The best thing Lemos has on her side is her grappling. She averages 1 takedown per fight and is a very good BJJ practitioner, but she just relies on her hands a lot because she's got just a gift, this massive power. And Rodriguez has struggled somewhat with takedowns. I think just no one wants to stand with her, so they end up grappling. They have her opponents have a grappling heavy approach, which makes sense. So that's what I think, at least. I'm all in on Rodriguez here. I say Lemos gas is out 4-5. She's just, if it even gets that far, I think that she's just going to be totally gassed, and that's the difference maker for me. And yeah, that's it. Glad to be back after our nice month vacation. But yeah, that's it. No brainer MMA. Thanks for watching.